it's good to see y'all in Charleston tonight. I just left Columbia. We had a committee hearing on the tuberculosis issue up in Greenwood County. I don't know how many of y'all are familiar with that. I was hoping to get a lot of information on exactly what happened and the details, but it kind of was more of a Taft Templeton meeting, and most of the Democrats were there just to ask the same question repetitively. And what I learned during the process was that there's a court case going on for some of the folks that she removed because there were some issues there, either their fault or her fault, we're not sure, but there's an ongoing lawsuit. So they put basically the director under oath in order to ask her questions, which ultimately could be used against her in the lawsuit. So I wasn't real happy about the process, but that's where I've been. And one thing I did find out, they were talking about the tuberculosis around the world. And they say that 1 in 3 in the world is infected with tuberculosis. Well, one thing we've got to realize is when we don't protect our southern border, we've got a lot of folks with TB coming across the border. And that's where a lot of the infection's coming from.
Exactly right.
Because here it's not quite as large. Some of the folks coming across our southern border in the border states, as many as 80% are infected with tuberculosis.
Wow.
So, of course, with Obamacare on the way, we won't have to worry. But it is it's a definite situation, and I believe, immigration is what's made this country great. I mean, although some of my ancestors were already here, and just letting y'all know, I'm part Cherokee, part Scotch-Irish, and then my great-grandparents immigrated from Germany. So I am a walking melting pot, or a mutt, however you want to call it. But I've got perspective on all ends. So I believe in immigration. I think it's great. This is the greatest country on earth still. It's been able to sustain because of the founding documents, I believe, and because of those men and their wisdom, we've been able to sustain it. Now, the Constitution, as we see, is under assault. From what I can tell, the Obama administration, they do understand the Fifth Amendment. That is one part of the Constitution that they do want to keep when they're testifying. But and I will say that if we had the same tenacity in Washington from the Republicans, which I don't want to paint with a broad brush here, because I believe Trey Gowdy up in Spartanburg doing a great job investigating what's going on with Benghazi. But if they had the tenacity in the U.S. Congress that these Democrats in Columbia have going after Haley, I would argue to say that our president may be facing impeachment at this point. Right. Because they are ruthless going after, today it was just, if you'd have been there, it was 4 hours. I wanted to come be with you guys on a little bit late. I left before the end of it, but it was just basically the same questions over and over. They had talking points. But it's amazing when a Republican, when they think there's a Republican making a mistake, it's just like where, I don't know if I'm sure you guys remember a gentleman by the name of Bork, who was a Supreme Court justice nominee who got slayed.
Yeah.
But yet we let Kagan and Sotomayor right through, because that's the precedent. We've got to let them through. Elections have consequences. I believe that's what the senior senator from South Carolina said. And the problem is we have to endure those consequences. The entire country's enduring those consequences. We've got something going on right now as a consequence of election, which we've got a blatant abuse of executive power. You've got it with Obama, and our Republicans are not fighting as they should. You've got about 80 in the House that are fighting the good fight. I'm aware of 3, 4, 5 in the U.S. Senate fighting the good fight. So we're drastically outnumbered. But there's a blatant abuse of power going on in the White House. I don't know how many of you are familiar with sue and settle. What's going on right now with the EPA is people go in and they file suits, environmental suits, to shut down businesses. And the president basically doesn't defend the state, doesn't defend the federal government. So they settle with the courts, and basically by a lawsuit, we're having environmental actions taken on this country. Now we are we just, I don't know if you're aware, but two of the senators, the senior senator from Arizona, and some argue the junior senator from Arizona, but also the senior senator from South Carolina, actually is over in Egypt. And they've been traveling over there, trying to tell them how to run their country. But we've got in this country, we are over in the Middle East because I'm an America's First guy. Now you may have heard that there's something going on next week, which I love for you guys to pay very close attention. But I believe there's nothing wrong with being America first. And if we would get our own resources, we've got natural gas sitting off the coast of Georgetown, South Carolina. We don't have to have that far away. We've got our own. We've got the shale oil. We've got all the resources. God has blessed this nation enormously in spite of us, I believe, at times. But we've got all these natural resources. And we ought to just get them. And quit meddling in all these foreign nations' conflicts. I mean, I hate seeing people coming back here without arms and legs. I mean, these are our best and brightest. These people are there to defend America. And it seems like the first thing we want to hear is boots on the ground. And I'm just a state senator. I'm not a U.S. senator. I'm not a U.S. congressman. I get countless complaints from veterans about how long they're waiting for benefits. Don't put another veteran on foreign soil. Don't put another serviceman on foreign soil. We take care of the ones that have gone and sacrificed now. People want to say they're for veterans and they're for the military. Well, if you're for the military and you're for veterans, take care of the ones that have served.
That's right.
I mean, if you look at the VA, and I hate for Rachel Maddow to be the conscience of America. But she did a show the other day, and to her credit, she was talking about the fact of how much longer we've gone for veterans waiting for benefits. I mean, think about that. When they put their lives on the line, they have 5 years. I don't know if you're aware of this. They get out of the military, they got 5 years of VA benefits, health care. They make them wait a year just to get in line. I mean, it's absolutely ludicrous the way we're treating them. So, I mean, if I was in the U.S. Senate, I would make sure that, number one, our veterans were better taken care of. And number two, Americans, I mean, we've got to look out for us. I mean, I'm not saying that we can pass to the rest of the world, but if you want to give to foreign countries, if you want to help, then give your money. Donate your money. I think it's a great cause. But our system, we compel people to give. We don't give you an option because if you don't pay your income tax, and here's another thing, we've got a gentleman here that's a big, and I hate to ramble, but a big man with the fair tax group. Y'all might know him. But you think about the IRS and what's been happening. I mean, it's frightening. And we talk about the KGB and these other initials for these other countries. Let me tell you, the IRS is dangerous. I mean, it's very dangerous. I mean, we need to repeal that 16th Amendment. Why do we punish people for earning? If you want to discourage something, you tax it. So why do we discourage income? We discourage income, but we encourage dependence. That's what we do as a nation. That's what we do as a state. And you're going to get more of what you encourage. And what we've got is a nation that has more dependence, more debt. And you think about the unfunded liabilities in future generations. I mean, my problem is, and I get criticized a lot, is I just tell you what I believe. I don't sugarcoat things. You go back and look at Social Security and how it was set up. It was set up as a scam. You were supposed to live for 2 years and die. You paid it your whole life, and you live for 2 years and you die. I mean, that was the plan. Well, guess what? Before Obamacare, we started living longer. Now, I don't know what's going to happen after that gets fully implemented. You wait 5 years to go to the doctor, you may not, and maybe that's the plan. I don't know. But if you think about it, it's not sustainable. Medicare, the way it's set up, is not sustainable. I mean, basically, you're running deficit programs, and that's taking up the budget. And I'll tell you, I had a trucking company for 15 years. Fuel prices destroyed me. I got involved. You guys on the coast down here in Charleston, Tomato, up in Myrtle Beach, of course, they really faced it. You know, as far as property values, I had a commercial property go from $500,000 to $250,000 overnight. I mean, commercial property just collapsed. And one thing I found in my business was, you know, a lot of times you try to capitalize and you borrow for that better day. Well, if the better day never comes, what do? And I'm afraid, you know, in businesses fail. You know, you start over. That's what capitalism is all about. What's our government going to do? What's the plan for $17 trillion in debt? Well, I can tell you what the plan is, and that's you pump $85 billion a month out of thin air into the economy. And you devalue your currency. And that's how you pay off $17 trillion in debt. That's how you do it. But who does that punish? It punishes the savers. That's who you punish. You punish the most responsible among us. That's who's going to pay the price. So we've got a choice. Either we let them monetize the debt, which they're doing now, or we bring sanity back to Washington. And we say the government only does what the Constitution says it can do. The federal government has very limited roles. I would get rid of, I'm not that I would ever run for president, but I gotta tell you, in the debate, if you want to start listing things we should get rid of, there's a long list. We don't need a federal Department of Education. We don't need an IRS. These are all recent items. These were not in the founding documents. These were not things that we came across, you know, in the beginning when you had Jefferson, you know, who was somebody that's a hero of mine. You read his writings, there was nothing there about all these federal agencies. That wasn't part of the founding. That was something that came in the 1900s. And you think about it, 1972, I believe it was. What did we do before then without clean air and clean water? I was born in 70. So for 2 years I lived without an EPA. I don't know how. I grew, I developed without the federal government protecting me. So we've got the system, we've got a federal agency for everything. And I was reading the other day, you know, if we put them in charge of sand, there'd be a shortage if they were in the desert. I mean, they mismanage everything, but yet we continue to give them more and more. We've got to send people to Washington. They're going to go up there and say, not one more cent, not one more dime. They threatened us with a shutdown. Well, let me tell you, the last time we had a shutdown, had we not caved in the end, America would have been a different place. Don't cave. You know what? You might not get to go to a park. But you know what? Your grandchildren might have an America that you grew up in.
Right.
Now, I want to get a little bit, now, y'all let me know when it's time, because I am a state senator. I'm here for 6 hours, 8 hours, 10 hours. But this thing about safety and security and what we're facing as a nation. Sometimes, you know, Patrick Henry said, give me liberty or give me death. I don't know how many of us say that today. I say it today. Listen, I'm not in the shape I was as a younger man, but if Southwest Airlines says, Lee Bright, to get on Southwest Airlines, we want you to strip naked, we want to make sure you're not carrying anything. And we're going to decide if you take a 10-ounce bottle of water on this plane. You know what? Southwest Airlines, that's their fault. But I don't want the federal government groping me in line to get on an airplane. And these guys are getting beyond airplanes now. If you read the New York Times, which, you know, is a bastion of conservative ideological empowerment, but if you read the New York Times, they're saying that they're expanding. They're going into other parts of our lives. I mean, I think we remember some folks over in Germany where they had a secret police that got involved in other parts of our lives. And I don't trust power. I mean, Madison says not to trust people in power. Don't trust me. Don't trust any of your elected officials, because the more power corrupts. Absolute power corrupts absolutely.
Absolutely.
So don't trust your government. Trust the people. This is Charleston. Think about the Charleston earthquake. The Charleston earthquake happened and letters went out around the country and said, please help us, we just had a devastating earthquake. We need everything, and lots of it. As soon as the mayor could, he sent another letter and said, don't send anything else, we don't have room for it. That's America. America's not FEMA. People are scared to death of FEMA. What's FEMA really doing? I don't know what's FEMA, and I don't know why we have FEMA. FEMA's a scam. If you get the contract, FEMA works out pretty good for you. But as far as the American people, we're getting a shame. I'll debate anybody on any front, even defense, where the defense is they're entitled. You know, that's the federal government's job, is defense. Now, that's in the Constitution. They don't do that well as far as when it comes to how they manage the money. Why do we trust them with anything else? They can't do the only thing they're supposed to do. So I am for less government, smaller government, and a stronger people. I think if you're going to have a strong government, you're going to have strong people. I want to free people. I want you to control your own lives. I want you to have your own liberty. And I'm not willing to sacrifice my liberty for security. Because we're not going to be here forever, no matter what we do. But while we're here, I want to be free. That's what our founders wanted. And I believe what Patrick Henry said, where he talked about the lamp of experience, the only thing that he had to light his feet. Every time a government gets that much power, it crushes the people. We've got a federal government right now who's running guns in the Middle East. We want to provide all these weapons to the Middle East. But we want to take guns away from God-fearing, patriotic Americans. But we're going to run them down to Mexico. I mean, think about it. It's turned upside down. So either we can elect people that want to go down there and try to find compromise. And I served with 44 other senators right now. It's going to be 45 again. But 44 other senators. They're a great bunch of guys. I'm telling you. I think Bill Clinton would be the most fun. I mean, there's a lot of things I wouldn't do with him, but on the golf course, I imagine he's the most entertaining guy to be around. But he is dangerous and wrong for our country. I'm sure the senior senator from South Carolina is a great guy to hang out with. He's a funny, folksy guy, but he's wrong for America. Because he's I told him back when he ran for the U.S. Senate the first time, because he was a hero of mine. Let me tell you, when he went after Clinton in those impeachment hearings, I was so proud to be from South Carolina. But then he got with that John McCain. And I know John McCain has served his country well in the military. But I would argue not so well in the U.S. Senate. And I said, Senator Graham, or it was at that time Congressman Graham, I said, I'm concerned about your relationship with John McCain. And he just exploded. I mean, he exploded. He goes, he's an honorable man and I will not have you. I said, I'm just telling you that people in South Carolina want you to vote conservative. And it hasn't been done. It is not, whether it's the debt ceiling, whether it's Supreme Court judges. I was in the trucking industry when we had a Republican president and we had a Republican secretary of, I think she was the head of the EPA, one of my favorite organizations at the time, who came in and changed the emission laws. That destroyed the trucking industry. There was a huge pre-buy because everybody was afraid of the new engines. They were afraid of the fuel costs because they didn't know what was going to happen, so everybody goes out and does a pre-buy. When that pre-buy happens, it basically crushed the trucking industry because you had all that excess capacity, then the economy went south. So, you saw Yellow Freight, Yellow Wire, see, that was a Yellow Freight, Roadway, and Holland, their combined stock shares was $62 a share. They lost $1 billion in 1 year after that happened. They ended up having a reverse 5-to-1 split. Their stock went below $1 a share. That was what happens when we hug up with Nancy Pelosi and talk about global warming. That global warming is nothing but a scam. And a hoax, and an ability to tax you, and its ability to redistribute the wealth that this country has and send it around the world. Right now, the rest of the world's buying everything we got because we can't operate. I mean, this EPA is just crushing us. Regulations crushing us. The rest of the world's doing better, but it's crushing America. To me, the best thing, if you want to do something good for the world, have a strong America. That's good for the world, not crushing America. Because I believe, like Winston Churchill said, the West is the hope of the world. I really believe that. And I believe that the U.S. obviously is the hope of the West. We all know that. And I believe that the South is the hope of the U.S. I believe South Carolina is the crown jewel of the South. South Carolina. The rest of the country, and I argue the world, is looking to South Carolina for leadership. And you know what they tell me up in Greenville? We voted against the senior senator last time. Greenville County. Greenville County. Buddy Witherspoon won Greenville County the last election. But they say the coast is too moderate. The coast can't deliver the votes. So it's up to y'all. That's why I'm here. It's up to y'all. Not just South Carolina, not just the South, not just the country, but the world is looking at Charleston, South Carolina. So what are you going to do? The weight's on your shoulders.
Conservative movements, libertarian movements.
Y'all going to have to prove it come 2014.
We're going to get Lee Bragg elected.
I'll take all the questions.
If you still have more to say, but I don't
I
want you to...
warned you about being in the South Carolina Senate.
Okay, but I know they want to
My
ask
first
you
speech
questions.
was 3 minutes. I was horrified, petrified, stupefied, never done any public speaking, told my wife I can't do this, but it matters, so I got to run for office. gave a 3-minute speech, made it through, my knees not, couldn't survive. Got the second last sentence, and I'm not gonna get up there behind that well unless it really matters. Let somebody else do it, but I'll vote right. Nobody else will do it. So after filibustering my first and second budget, shutting down the Senate twice, I decided I had to do it. So now I really don't know when to stop. I'm ready for questions.
I know they want to ask you.
Yes, sir.
There's one that I was thinking about that all the candidates are going to be asked. Personally and generally, do you feel that you yourself and the rest of your future colleagues should be exempt from Obamacare, or they should be like the rest of us?
Well, I had a wise man tell me earlier, I'm not going to embarrass him in front of the crowd, but we were talking about the fact that if you got rid of the IRS, that takes care of the enforcement mechanism for Obamacare. I don't think that they should be exempt, but I don't think they should have Obamacare to begin with. But no, they shouldn't be exempt, they should have to live under the same rules that everybody else lives under. But the bottom line is, I think the country's finished if we don't stop Obamacare.